Hi, everybody. How are you? You are here on the Transatlantic Call-In Show, where you get the opportunity to talk to real live trans people. And I'm here with Dr. Ben, of course, wearing a really great t-shirt. Why don't you get
Yeah, let
everybody to
me
show that?
show it up. Yeah.
I love it. I love
So,
it.
yeah, trans-military shirt, of course, and I think I can snag a link if anybody wants to purchase one. I believe all the funds go to Sparta, which is a nonprofit organization working on fighting the trans-military ban. So, um, let me know if I can probably send the link somewhere in chat if people want to check it
Yeah,
out.
awesome. Sparta's a great organization. Definitely nice to support that group. And if you want to call in, make sure you call 720-619-2288. And if your call may have the opportunity to be spicy or actually be a little controversial, we will always prioritize your calls. Or you can join via the web link in the description below. And don't forget to send in your super chats with hashtag Team Ben or hashtag Team Josie, and we'll make sure to have a little competition at the end, and where someone has to give defense to a topic that may be a little indefensible or fun, most likely
Yeah.
fun.
Last week, Lux and I both had to do the challenge, and it was physically painful for me because Jimmy had the lovely idea to make me defend chiropractic. Um, and so that was a great time. Like, I felt like I was going to throw up that whole time. So if anyone wants to go back and watch it, it was horrible. And then Lux had to defend that Facebook is the best place for like atheist discussion.
Oh my gosh. I need to go back and watch that. That
It was great.
sounds really exciting because on the show before that, Arden and I both had to, because we had an exact tie and we both had to do the challenge as well. So it's getting interesting here.
Yeah.
But yeah, so I think we are going to go ahead and start with a call, I believe. Is that correct, Ben? I think so, right?
Yeah,
All
let's do
right.
it. Yeah.
All right. Any call here look interesting enough to get us started for today?
I think we could just go with the first one on the list. That might be a good conversation.
All right, sounds good. We'll just go to pop in Amanda. She, her pronouns from New York. Wants advice on having LGBTQ plus characters in books without appearing to be disingenuous virtue signaling. Yeah, talk to us about it. How are you today?
I'm doing all right. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, absolutely. I love this topic, by the way. I'm always a big fan about media and trans representation.
Yeah, I'm writing a little series of fantasy novels, and I've called in before with your to get advice from the show in depicting a trans character. And
I think
well,
I think I was I the person that was on the call with you before. It might have been Ben and I both before,
It might have
if
been
I
both
have
of us.
mistakes.
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
and the advice I got from you there was very helpful. And I was also thinking of a scene I was going to add a couple of lesbian dragons, hanging out with a one of the
Okay.
main characters while she's with their children. The lesbian dragons are lamenting that because they're both female, they can't have hatchlings of their own. So the main character asks them, have they ever considered getting with a pair of gay male dragons and making a foursome family, because that's what they do
Oh,
in the human culture she comes from sometimes. But
interesting.
I also worried that if I'm tacking on side characters that aren't part of the main story, or important to the main line, that it looks like I'm just tacking them on to tack them on, and it's not serious.
Yes. And I think I recall from the last time we talked about how you were thinking about having a trans character be there with this protagonist being able to support that character. I remember. Is that correct? I just want to double check.
Yeah.
Okay. So what is your specific question for this particular thing that you're talking about the dragons themselves?
Well, kind of wondering, but having, non-human, gay characters, be, like, hey, yeah, that's cool, or would it seem, you know, stupid, tacked on, like they're just being not serious about it?
Well, queer fantasy is a big genre. There's a lot of people who will specifically seek out literature that has queerness like kind of baked into the whole thing. So if you are going to, you probably want to put that on a dust cover, right? Where it's like, queer dragons try to find, family by through, this particular thing, and people will read it. People will read it. Like
Yeah.
queer fantasy is a hot commodity when it comes to stuff like that. So I think if you're just upfront with it and saying, hey, I'm writing a queer fantasy about lesbian dragons, you already have an audience captured at that moment. So I think if you're just upfront with it and you're not trying to like shoehorn it into like another like plot point, for example, I think that makes sense. But if you're upfront with it and this is the theme of the book and it's about this discovery or whatever, I think that works. I don't know, Ben, what do you think?
Yeah, I think like I think it'd be more odd as like if it's a one-time encounter and it's just like the short thing that seems like a bit out of place. But if you have a running theme throughout the whole book of like exploring different types of relationships and exploring the, different perspectives on like familiar relationships and like all that stuff. And then you have, okay, here's these characters that are having this issue they're trying to work through. And maybe the main character has a running thing throughout the story of this is the culture that this person comes from. And like, as long as it's exploration throughout the story and that is a main theme running through it, then I think that's okay to kind of tack on some shorter term characters that fit into the main story, as long as it's relevant to the rest of the thing. I do think it would be odd to just have like a side quest with like lesbian characters and then have nothing related to the rest of the story about it. So kind of in agreement with Josie about that.
Yeah, that's what I was worried about, because they're not critical at all to the main storyline. See, I could completely cut out, the trans character. I could completely cut out the gay dragons, and the story
Well,
would be
they don't need to.
like
The characters
completely
don't need to
unaffected.
be. Well, the characters don't need to be central to the story, but if the theme that like if the whole conflict related to them, such as the reproduction issue, if that's a theme that shows up in other places of the story, then it's like, okay, this is one perspective on the issue. Here's one potential conflict that arises from this theme that is overarching in the story. So like if the protagonist has their own journey with something related to love and relationships, and like if the main character learns something from this encounter or has some in some way, that encounter needs to tie back into the rest of the story. Otherwise it does kind of seem like it's just being thrown in like for as a token.
Well, the main
Yeah.
character does have, uh, issues having her own, with her own children. So I don't know if it'll tie
Interesting.
in well or not.
It's a tough one because like I was thinking like in the Game of Thrones universe, especially in the later books, you have no more dragons, right? Like and they do appear at some point, right, in those situations. But it would be a really interesting story thread if like there were only two dragons in the world left and they were in love, but they were both like femme dragons, and that's how it worked out, and then that was the end of their species, and that would be a really interesting story like in a book that a character reads, right? Like
Mhm.
that there's something like that like I think about those type of things where it just like happens to be that way, or maybe it's really interesting, and it's hard to say because I'm not the one writing this, and I still don't know the overarching like themes of where you're trying to go. Of like, are the dragons like in the world? Are they friendly, or will they eat humans, or are they more storybook where you're like reading about the dragon's love story, and it's like a story within a book that the characters are reading to each other? Is there like, there's so many different ways to kind of like catalog the way that these stories go, because I think that for me, the way I see it is dragons are always, in my opinion, like a really big plot point in any fantasy. So, because like once dragons show up, dragons exist in the story. So therefore everybody's really interested about the dragons. At least that's how I tend to see how people read into fantasy literature of dragons. And it's like, is the protagonist like friendly with dragons in a way that allows them to communicate, or is it kind of like from a distance type situation? And again, it comes down to the universe of how you're looking at communicating this story.
Yeah, the dragons are, a main feature, and like I said, she's just having a friendly chat with this, lesbian pair of dragons.
While
sitting around with her kids.
Interesting. And you want the lesbian dragons to be a plot point of like reproductive issues?
Kind of, just kind of, cross-cultural, this is the way, humans do it when they have a pair of ladies that want to have kids. They'll, team up with a pair of gay dudes and, make a bigger family.
I guess, sure. I mean,
that's one way humans do it.
Yeah. I mean, like the family planning of dragons is a very interesting concept of like, it's like we are going to have these dragons have children, and we're going to facilitate the family planning of these dragons. I think that's a really interesting, a very interesting situation of like, is the female dragons, the lesbian dragons, are they coming up to the protagonist being like, help us find a male dragon to help us do this thing? I think that's kind of funny in a lot of senses.
If you make it, almost. I feel like in that way, if you make it comical, it almost works better, because it's like, if these dragons, like if it's not this super serious plot point and it's just maybe even a moment of comic relief of like, this is like being queer is socially acceptable, and like, but here's this interesting kind of issue they're having, and they feel confident enough to be like, hey, can you find us a sperm donor? Like,
man, that dragon slayer of trying to find the sperm, the dragon sperm that will help cure this ailment of these lesbian dragons.
Like, I think maybe taking it the comic direction might be, it might be better in that way, I think, but adding some humor to it.
Like, I'm literally wearing my little D20 dice necklace right now, because I just love fantasy so much. But I could totally have like a comedic plot line of like my adventuring party coming across 2 lesbian dragons, and the quest is to find the sperm of a male dragon so they can repopulate.
No, that's actually really funny. I kind of love that.
I was like, they're having this conversation with this male dragon they find. They're like, hey, buddy, can we like ask you a huge favor? Sorry, Amanda, if we're making too much light of this. But I think it is interesting.
Well, I'm glad you at least find the concept, interesting and entertaining. So it's not a complete, throw it out, no way, don't do that. You'd be willing to at least, entertain the notion of having it.
I think if it's humorous, kind of like we mentioned, I would totally read it. I would totally read it just based on like, this is some good queer humor, and like I think queer people would find that to be funny. Like, I don't think they would feel very like, I think for the most part, like people are going to be offended by everything, but I feel like some people are going to be offended by whatever, but I do think that the majority of queer people would find that to be cute and funny.
Yeah, yeah. The side quest for the dragon sperm. Let's go.
Yeah.
The dragon scales? No, we need dragon sperm. Let's go.
Yeah. We're gonna write fan fiction about this.
Yes,
about your fiction. We're gonna make our own kinky dragon fanfic off of your fiction story.
Oh my god!
Thank you for your input. I did have one other question.
Sure, go for it.
About a month ago, I asked if I could, send some line hosts copies of the first book because I'm currently working on book 2, and I didn't get a reply back to my emails.
Oh,
I figured,
that's my fault. I got the email. I'm sorry. I've just been so busy. Until the fundraiser's done in 2 weeks, my brain is just like completely absorbed by that. But I will get back to you as soon as I can.
Okay, since I hadn't gotten a reply back, I didn't know if it had been seen or lost in a spam folder.
I got it. Thank you.
So
Okay.
we'll
thanks for sending that.
I will be happy to, as soon as Arden gets to it, to take a look.
Yeah.
Alrighty.
Yeah. Well, thank you, Amanda. I appreciate you.
Yep. Thank you guys so much, and I hope you have a great day.
Yeah, you too.
You too.
All right.
I'm gonna go.
Cool.
I'm gonna go write dragon fan fiction after this.
Yeah. The quest for the dragon sperm.
For dragon sperm. I'm gonna make that into a D&D campaign. Okay? Actually, I'm gonna make it into a D&D campaign.
I know. That would be so good. So good. It's like you come across 2 female dragons that are madly in love, and they're just like, help us, please, adventurers. And they like have specifics. They're like, we don't want any dragon. We need a red dragon, or we need just like, it's like
we want these specific
make it more
stats
complicated
of dragon.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. We'll settle no less for a chromatic dragon. It's like, what?
Yes. Anyway.
Oh my gosh. Anyways, I love it. And people know I'm a nerd. Like, I even have my little dragon pin here. Like, I love my little dragons. Anyways, so let's get to the poll that we had last week.
Yeah.
Great. So last week, do you think players should be disqualified for unsportsmanlike conduct if they refuse to compete with trans athletes? We have 67% saying yes and 33% saying no, which is a little closer than I expected. What are your thoughts, Ben?
Yeah. I mean, I gave a lot of my takes on this last time, but my whole thing was, like, you're part of a sports organization that has a certain rule set. You consent to that rule set when you compete with that sports organization. You registered for a particular tournament. You show up, and like in fencing, they tell you who your matches are with beforehand. Like, she had every point to, like, if there was an actual moral dilemma with this, not like, and also mentioning the fact that fencing is co-ed, like the person who got all the publicity for this, like, has competed against cis men and has won before, like, so that's nothing new for like cis guys. But then if it was a moral issue, she had every opportunity to just quietly back out and just not make a big deal out of it. Like anytime you go to a competition and you don't want to be there, even if it's day of, you can quietly like disqualify yourself. Like, you could just back out. And she didn't. She decided to wait until stepping out, like, onto the whatever they call the mat in fencing, like, to step out there, take position, and then make the spectacle of it. So yeah, that is absolutely disrespectful. That is unsportsmanlike. You had every opportunity to back out respectfully and did not take that. So,
and wasn't the person who kneeled, wasn't she 31 and the trans woman was like 19 or something like that? I believe that's the case. Yeah, like there was a
Yeah.
huge age difference too, and it was like this poor young, trans woman, like 19 years old, and now she's caught in this media frenzy. I really feel like the fencer who kneeled is just trying to be the next Riley Gaines. Like I heard that there was like a case happening. It's bad.
Yeah, as well. And again,
really,
like for
really
a co-ed sport, like and that trans woman probably, I don't know if she was interested in fencing like long before that or for other reasons, but like if you're gonna pick a sport, like and you don't want to have any issues with your gender, like picking a co-ed sport is like theoretically one of the safest things you could do because there's really nothing that they can get you on. But like the fact that you can't even compete in a co-ed sport is ridiculous. Like it just goes to show that the idea isn't to have fair accommodations. The idea is to dehumanize trans people and not let them compete. Because if you can't be in a co-ed sport, that is effectively means you cannot play sports.
Yeah, exactly. It's such a horrible situation. So we'll go ahead and get to this week's poll, and then we'll take the next call as we let the results happen. But should trans people stay in the fight in places and I'm sorry, let me read that again. Should trans people stay and fight in places with restrictive laws or move to safer areas? So the answers are yes, stay and fight, and no, move to somewhere safer. So while we take the next call, make sure you vote, and then we will readdress that as we go. Great. So Ben, what about it looks like 6-4? Do you see that on the list?
Yeah, let's do that one. That one looks like an interesting one.
Okay.
Oh.
So we are bringing in Tyler, he, him in Texas, and wants to talk about why gender as a concept is necessary. Also, it seems like you have us on speaker, Tyler. If you could take us on speaker, please.
Jesus Christ. Caller, please get rid of the background sound, move somewhere safe. I've got you muted right now because that is completely not doable for the show. So I'm going to give you a second and then I'm going to bring you back.
You're muted right now.
Okay.
And
right now.
Okay.
You
Tyler,
got me?
Are you there? Yeah.
Good.
Sorry, we were on
I
speaker.
think I heard better to go to another room.
Yeah, no,
okay.
that was my garage. I was just stepping out.
No worries. Thank you.
Yeah, the reason I was calling, I kind of just had like had a discussion with some friends about, hey, gender norms. It kind of came up in the context of, raising kids to be like, oh, well, I want my son to be strong and brave and this and that. And it didn't really sit right with me in my mind, just because I can't think of a gender norm trait, a gender normative trait that I would want for a son and not for a daughter, like a positive trait in that sense. And it kind of just got me down the line of like, why do we have such a distinction between, gender and sex? I understand in terms of gender being the social aspects of how maybe typical, I'm not even say it's not sex traits playing out, but just like our typical ideas about sex as we've understood it throughout history so far, and sex being the purely anatomical side of that. But I don't know. I guess it's why do we feel the need, do you think, to put these strict labels on it, and why? And what do you think we should be doing to kind of? In my mind, I think we should just kind of be moving away from those sorts of things. There's no reason to ascribe, clothing, hobbies, all these silly things to one gender or another. Does that kind of make sense?
Yeah, no, absolutely. This is a topic that I think we love to talk about, and it sounds like you're kind of in favor of abolishing gender norms, and you might even, depending on how far in that spectrum you go, maybe into the realm of gender abolitionism. Have you heard anything about that? Have you heard of the term gender abolitionism before?
Yeah, I've heard the term, but that's actually not something I've gone and tried to look up. I tried to read some stuff online about, why we have such a distinction between gender and sex, and all the answers I could really find. Granted, they weren't like great ones. It was like, people looking at stuff through Reddit, posting sources, and most of the stuff that I read was basically, oh, hey, this is just what societies do. Like, this is how it's always been. I'm like, that's dumb. That's
essentially
not a cogent answer.
Yeah, essentially, that's a simplification of, like, there's a whole sociologic, like, field of, like, gender studies, and if you read into some of those books, even like at a pretty beginner college level, they go into some depth about how, like, gender norms came up, and especially in Western society, but you can find other books showing how it exists in Eastern societies and all across the world, because it is, when we say gender is a social construct, it absolutely is. It's like, how do people interact with the society that they're part of? And since, like, the dawn of civilization, a lot of societies have said that anatomy is a way to categorize people based on, like, reproduction and fertility status, and, like, who can you reproduce with, etc. And of course, naturally, humans have a tendency to want to put things into simplified boxes, and to also put things into a hierarchy. And so that's how, of course, we get matriarchal societies versus patriarchal societies. Like, how did they categorize people on this social ladder in order to, have some kind of structure? And a lot of that, traces back to, like, religious organizations or religious beliefs of, like, what is the significance of these anatomical differences? How should we reproduce? Like, who should we reproduce with, etc. I apologize for the ice cream truck in the background, but that is what that noise is. But there's kind of a lot of discussion now that, and I would agree with you, that these gender norms of assigning traits, like character traits, to a gender is absolutely ridiculous. I would agree that we want our girls and our boys and our non-binary kids to be strong. We want them to be respectful. We want them to have a variety of characteristics. And no, none of that needs to be gendered. Like, clothing does not need to be gendered. Hairstyles do not need to be gendered. Names don't even need to be gendered. Like, none of this needs to be gendered. And, like, I would agree that it's a very insufficient answer to just say this is how it's always been, but that's really what we mean when we say it's a social construct. And I do kind of lean into the gender abolition side of things, not to the absolute extreme, where, like, some people will take that to say gender should not exist at all, like, you shouldn't even use it for, like, identification. I'm in the camp that will say, so gender norms don't need to exist, but gender itself can exist as a personal identifier. Like, I can have a gender identity. I can say that I'm a man. Like, Josie can say that she's a woman. We can carry that label for ourselves, but that label doesn't have to mean anything in society other than this is how I identify. So, what are your thoughts on that stuff?
I think you've kind of just summed up what's been my view on, especially the just using, like, gendered language as an identifier, but essentially separate from who you are as a like, who you are in your totality. Like, that's it's a useful tool.
Yeah, it's like if somebody has blonde hair versus brown hair, like, Josie and I don't have different character traits because of our different hair color. But it is something, like, that's an adjective that I can use to say, hey, this is a description of my hair color. This is a description of some anatomical feature I have, or this is a description of my personality that I have. But it doesn't have to carry any other weight than that. Like, there are so few other like features that actually do carry that much weight. Although you will see in other parts of society, like within relationship structures and within like dating norms, there is a lot of body shaming and hierarchies that happen in that case, which is also totally made up. Like there's no rule that says you have to date someone taller than you, or like you have to reproduce to somebody of like this height or whatever. But that's such a societal norm. But yeah, a lot of these, I think there's just an innate like human desire for simplicity. Like it's so much easier to sit back and say this exists because XYZ categories exist. It's easier to accept that than to accept that there's a range of uncertainty. It's easier to give assumptions and to just think you know somebody instead of asking the hard questions and instead of like really getting to know people. And so I think it like the psychology tends to be the root of a lot of it, but also, oh, dang. Well, I hope you can still hear us, Tyler.
Yeah, on the web browser,
Tyler.
maybe.
Yeah. Oh, maybe.
Tyler, are you there?
No, caller has dropped.
No, I think we lost.
Tyler has dropped, unfortunately.
At least Tyler can watch back in the replay. But Josie, do you have anything to add to that, like for Tyler to go back and listen to?
Yeah, I think a lot of it also has to do with like it comes down to the philosophical versus the reality. And I think it's completely valid to start saying, that, gender is a vestige of religious white colonialism, pan-Europeanism, and how a lot of times those gender norms were systems of power. And that's where I was going to go about how that is seen as like, if you are masculine, you are strong, if you are feminine, you are weak, and like, nurturer versus the hunter gatherer, like all the different things that exist around that are all based in power dynamics, and it supports the patriarchal colonialist point of view, which is like, if we put everybody into boxes, it's easier to divide the people and therefore easier to kind of essentially conquer them. If you say that one minority or one group of people is stronger than the other, then it's easy to subjugate the, quote unquote, weaker sex. And I think that's where a lot of the historical context of gender in a lot of ways are represented. And I think that it is a vestige. I think it's useless now. There's no reason to have these characteristics assigned to gender identities. And unfortunately, as you said, a social construct, it exists regardless if we don't want it to or not. So therefore, when trans people transition, they're transitioning to the social construction of what women or men or however people want to show up as non-binary. It's living inside of the system that we cannot change. Like, just because we may not believe in money as a social construct, and I'm like, I don't want to use money in the marketplace, I don't like it, I don't wanna. It's like, well, then you are going to not have any resources to thrive and live in this society. If you wanted to reject that we use time as a social construct in seconds, minutes, and hours, well, good luck, like, trying to reject being on time to things. It's all a social construct.
Yeah, and like that's something that I like to bring up as well, is the fact that, like, as much as I don't believe that gender should be used like for social norms, and I don't think it should be required for anything at all other than identification. However, we live in a society that does require it and that does adhere to that. And so, like, to people that say, well, then why does any of that even matter? Why do you fight for self-ID for gender? Like, why do you fight for people to be referred to with their correct pronouns and name and stuff? Because it does matter in our society. And in order to function, we have to be recognized. And we have to be recognized in the gender that we are. And so, to your point on that, that's the utility of why this conversation matters.
Yep, exactly. Great. So we will go back to the poll to discuss it really briefly, and then we'll go back to calls. So should trans people stay in the fight in places where restrictive laws, or move to fight to safer areas? So it's pretty split with our chat. Well, it was split. Now it's not. So 39%
Yeah.
say yes and fight, and 61% say move, no, move somewhere else, somewhere safe. What are your
Yeah.
thoughts, Ben?
My thoughts is both are good answers, and it depends on the person, depends on their situation. Kind of like at the bottom of it, somebody has to fight, like, or nothing is going to change in that area. Like, somebody has to hold the line, because if the line is not held, they are going to be bulldozed. And there are people in those areas who cannot leave. Like, there are children who cannot leave. There are people who don't have the resources to leave. And it's a case where, as much as I want everyone to be able to go somewhere safer, that's not an option for everybody. And with that, people with less social capital and with less privilege are going to have a harder time fighting than people who do have privilege. So my thought would be, it's not an ought. Like, you don't have to, like, sacrifice your well-being for somebody else. That is not a requirement. However, it's a good thing for people who have social capital and who have privilege in certain ways to use that privilege to help the people who can't leave. Like, if you have for example, like, I'm a male passing white person in the military. I have like an advanced professional degree, obviously in medicine. Like, I have the ability to maintain like a stable income, like if I were to lose my military position, etc. Like, I have access to resources that other people may not have. And so it would be more moral for me to use those resources to lawyer up, to start fighting these cases, to provide resources for people in the area, provide like a place if people need to stay somewhere, provide provide something. So, like, no, you don't have to fight, but somebody's going to have to be on the chopping block. And if you have more privilege, I would consider giving some of that privilege and helping out where you're at.
Yeah, I agree with all that, and I always, and in a lot of my candidate work and training other candidates, I talk about how it's hard to run as a trans candidate in this country. It's an act of defiance. That's what I say. However, if you're able to run for office in this country, you are privileged to suffer. You have the ability to suffer in that way, and it's very different from somebody who is suffering because they can't get food or access to healthcare.
Yeah.
Or things like that. That is not a good thing. And if you can find a place that will allow you to get those things, by all means, you should go and retrieve those things. But if I think it all has to do on privilege and where you sit in the fight that allows you to make that decision. When the military ban stuff that is being discussed, I was talking to many active duty folks who had the ability to fight and stay in, and fight kicking and screaming and to stay in. Or there were also people who are like, I have a massive amount of bonuses that I would have to pay back if I don't take this volunteer separation. And I didn't blame those people to say, you know what, go ahead, get out. If you don't like the military and you don't want to stay in, then do it. Move somewhere safer. And I think it has a lot of parallels to that, where there were some people in the military that had the privilege to be able to stay and fight, and there were some military members who are like, no, I'm taking this exit because it's not good otherwise. And I think it has a lot to do with that, and it's all about assessing it. But you should never be forced to stay and fight if you don't have the ability to do so. And if you don't have the resources to move somewhere else, then find groups of people that will help you stay safe in the places that you are, because I think that also has to be mentioned as well, because it is a privilege to move as well. But yeah, great. Well, I'm excited to see what the rest of the Line network is going to say on YouTube. So yeah, we'll go to the next callers. And if you haven't hit
there's
like
one.
or subscribe, yes, go ahead, Jen. Sorry.
Oh no! Say your thing. I'll say mine after.
Oh, I was just going to say that if you haven't liked or subscribed, what are you doing? Do that now. And if you are doing super chats, make sure you do hashtag Team Ben or hashtag Team Josie, or the vote won't count. So make sure you are always doing that when you can, because it's always good to have a little bit of a friendly rivalry on the show, as all of you love to see the hosts go at each other's throats, which I am fine to do. So go ahead, Dr. Ben.
Oh, I was just going to say that there's a call specifically directed at you, and so I figure while you're here, might be a good one for you.
Sure. Let's see. So that would be the first call there. So let me go ahead and take that in. So we have Fishy, she, her from Malaysia. Wants to ask me a question about participating in local activism as a trans woman. So yes, how let's hear about it. How are you?
Hello. Can you hear me?
Hi. Yes, I can hear
Hi.
you.
Hi,
Yes,
I'm
thank you for calling in.
Fishy. Yeah, thank you.
Yeah.
I'm Fishy and I'm from Malaysia. I'm a trans woman in my early 30s and
Mm-hmm.
my pronouns are she, her. So I would like to ask about the experience of activism and should I sacrifice my own privacy for the sake of advocating for the local community. I did participate in a workshop like last year, and I'm now having second thoughts as how open should I be in fighting for the community in a way in this country that wants to ban us,
Yes,
criminalize
absolutely.
us.
Well, thank you for calling in and asking this really important question. You said you did a program. Was that a program that you traveled to the United States for, or is that a program that you did in Malaysia?
I did in Malaysia.
Okay, you did it in Malaysia. Okay, because I've been to international conferences where we talk about these type of things as well. So I was just curious that you may have been at the same place I was, but I was not in Malaysia. So first off, I will say this: safety is the most important thing. If you are in danger, it is one of those things where you have to really think about your own well-being and where different states are when or in different situations. We were just having a conversation just now about having the privilege to be able to have these conversations and be able to put yourself out there. I know in the United States, which is where I do all of my activism, I actually help candidates all over the country, even in very hard conservative rural areas in the country, to actually stand up and run for office. And I actually support those candidates, even in places that would be a little bit more dangerous to put themselves out there, and they still do it. I always say it's an act of defiance to stand up when it is a very hard time to do so. However, I don't know the situation in Malaysia enough to know, is that even a safe situation. So in Malaysia currently right now, you said that they are trying to ban trans people. What does that mean?
I mean, they are not actively banning us, but as a trans woman in Malaysia, you got to act act like how to say
Mhm.
they will try to capture you under the law of cross-dressing if you are in a suspicious type of way, like you are hugging someone in
Mhm.
a room, or they. I'm personally a Chinese, so in a way, the Islamic law doesn't affect me,
Mhm.
but they are not actively trying to capture us. Just just that
Mhm.
things like the bathroom issues, they will capture you if someone reported you.
Yeah,
So
because Malaysia has very strict laws. I know it is a predominantly Muslim Islamic nation. I've
yep.
been to Malaysia before, Kuala Lumpur, a long, long time ago. I wasn't trans then, or I wasn't openly trans then. So I know that it can be very, very strict, and it is something that can be seen as very dangerous. Is there a trans community that you are a part of, at least underground, that you go to? Like, and I mean not underground, but like hidden, that's secret that you have that you can communicate with other trans people?
Yeah, I'm with the community in that is in Malaysia. They they categorically base themselves in fighting for human rights for everyone in Malaysia, but they do have trans men as the creator, and Nisha Ayub was one of the co-founder for the uh,
Mm.
community also. Nisha Ayub was famously awarded the Woman of the Year, like I think it's 2023 in US. She's one of
Mm.
the main trans activists in Malaysia. So we are
Yeah.
kind of working with her also.
Yeah, I think that so this is what I would do. In your situation. And one of the things is try to get in contact with that person that you were just talking about, one of the main activists. Start talking to other leaders who are actually going out there and doing the work and actually going into community and actually doing activism, and ask them how they you can support, how you can be a part of the leadership and find that community. I think that that is probably the best thing, because the people who are already doing the activism, the people who are already showing up and doing the community work, is probably your best resource to be able to do it. And I tell this to all people, no matter what country they are, or if they're in the United States. Even is always find people that are in your community and then start working from there to say, I want to do this thing. How can I be supportive in a way that helps our community move forward? And and it's always important to find out and do that research first, and communicate with amazing humans like the person you were just talking about, and then from there use their expertise and their experience, so that way you can do it in a way that is more safe, because they are the ones already doing it in a way that at least they are safe in a way and getting acknowledged in the world that are in the country already. So does that make sense? Have you
Yes,
reached out to other trans advocates in Malaysia?
not actively, but sometimes
Okay,
when I
I would start there. Yeah.
okay,
Find other activists, and then you would probably be able to be a lot you'll have community, and when you have community around you, you will be safer. If you are doing it by yourself and you don't know, it's much more difficult to be able to know what can be done in a way that is effective with the activism that is already happening. um so that's what I would do. I know it's not like the best answer, but I think it will probably be able to get you an answer in the future. But I do want to commend you and say thank you for your activism, because you are going to be showing up in a place that is much, because every time a activist or an advocate comes forward, it allows other trans people that are around you that are hiding be like, oh, maybe I can do this too. And it is hard, it is brave, it is incredible that you're willing to put yourself in this fight when we are being attacked at all levels. And so do it safely, find other members in your community that are willing to be that are already advocates, and learn from them. And I think you will find yourself much better off in understanding of what you can do next for your community.
Okay. I like
Yeah.
to comment that what a great timing for the pool where
Yeah.
the country criminalizes.
Yeah. And there's also international organizations that also exist. So like I believe the Victory Institute does an international program. And if you send an email, they may be able to put you in contact with other Malaysia trans advocates that you can start getting in contact with as well. So that was like the Victory Institute. And if you go there, I'm pretty sure you'll be able to find their international programs and message somebody there. I've met so many incredible international trans advocates across the country, across the world, that have really done amazing things, from Peru to different. I've met advocates in the UK. I've even met some advocates from like African nations as well, and the Philippines. So there are so many people out there doing this work, and the first step is to find other people like yourself that want to start supporting the rights of their own nation.
All right.
Okay?
All right.
Awesome.
Thanks
Anything else?
for the feedback.
Yeah, no,
I
thank
think
you.
no
Thank you
more.
for your willingness. No
I
more?
will pass
Okay.
on the torch. I will pass on
Okay.
the torch forward.
Yes,
Thank
I
you.
appreciate you. Thank you, Fishy. I really hope the best, and I'm sure I'm probably gonna. Maybe I'll meet you one day as you do this fantastic work.
All right. Hope that
All right, bye
Trump
bye.
won't
Yeah.
Yes, I hope
fail.
so. Yeah, bye
All
bye.
right. Thanks. Good.
All right. That was great. I really appreciate calls like
Yeah.
that. It's tough. It does put things into perspective. As a lot of people who live in like America and other nations where we're fighting for our rights, but we still have the right to actually be existing on the streets. And that's a very real thing, that we have the opportunity to be able to live here, where we still have the ability to be active in a way that is still predominantly safe, where there's other nations where poking your head out can be incredibly scary and dangerous to the life and safety of that person. So I do like those calls that put that perspective forward.
Yeah.
Great. Wonderful. So Ben, do you have any other people on the list you want to bring forward?
Yeah. Well, I know the next one on the list can't be on for too long, so maybe we just kind of go down the list.
Okay, sure. So we'll just go down the list, and we will be bringing in Lola, they, them from Sweden, another overseas call. Wants to talk to us about religious trauma. How are you?
Yeah, I'm doing all right. How are you guys?
We're making it.
We're doing all right. Yeah. I mean, all right.
Yeah.
I'm saying all right as in definitely, just surviving. But yeah, I think
Yeah.
we're all in the same boat.
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. So Lola, what do you
yeah,
want to talk to us about?
Yeah, sure. This could be a very quick call, but basically, the reason why I wanted to call in on the Transatlantic Call Show specifically is I'm really interested to know opinions, and I'll check the chat later on. It's quite late here, and I'm an early riser, so I go to bed pretty early. I'd love to know
Sure.
people's opinions about atheist spiritualism and like Brittany Hartley, because I'm just kind of starting, like I'm recently an atheist, and my kind of religious trauma isn't really from my previous religion. It's more from my mom is gay, and I have a trans stepdad, and they didn't accept me as a non-binary person. And there was a lot of that kind of trauma from that, was kind of why I turned to religion. And there was like, it not only did they like not accept me, but like they borrowed money from me to pay for my like stepdad's top surgery. And then when I needed money for my surgery, that was kind of like the kind of straw that broke the camel's back. So like now, because my mom's pagan, and I kind of have this visceral reaction around like, even when I just do guided meditation and it gets a little bit too kind of bippity boppity bullshit, I feel a little like this instant revulsion of like, oh, this is unsafe. But that doesn't come from a rational place. It comes from like this trauma place. And I don't like the idea that this could be blocking me from something interesting, and that my mom is kind of preventing me from accessing this. And I found Brittany Hartley and the concept of atheist spiritualism, and that was this, and the line was kind of like part of my journey into atheism. And so I was just curious if you guys had any experience with that, or if that, or if you just think like, well, I'm not spiritual. I describe myself as aspiritual as well because of the like revulsion, but like, yeah, I just was curious because whenever I feel kind of that revulsion, I was the same about sex. Like I was really sex repulsed. And then I was like, no, I'm going to learn about this actually. And I became like a pure sexual health advocate. So like, I really want to challenge this like revulsion. I don't want it to like, I don't want it to control my decisions. I want to investigate it, but I love the idea of like it being with atheists and not being very woo woo. So yeah, maybe you don't have any experience with it and you're just sort of like whatever. But yeah, I wanted to ask you guys because I thought you would understand as well, dealing with like not being accepted.
Yeah, no, and I just wanted to start off by saying that I'm so sorry for your experience with your family. And like there are many amazing and accepting trans people. There are also plenty of trans people that have terrible ideas and are still toxic. And it sounds like that was the situation that you had. And I hope you're not going through this journey alone. I hope you have like either a counselor or like some kind of mentor to walk you through this process. Cause like I don't know the full extent of the situation, but I know processing kind of this level of trauma on your own can be difficult and can be dangerous. Like if it's like if you have a bad day and you push too hard. So I hope you have some access to that. But I'm personally I'm not spiritual. I've never really been into kind of the pagan side of things, but I know lots of people who are like atheo-pagans and who like to have that kind of religious structure without the religion itself. Like I know people who just like to have rituals. I know people who like to do tarot just as a form of meditation and reflection, like not to not to foresee the future or anything, but just to say, oh, like maybe this card will help me think about a situation differently. Or like, so I know plenty of people who like to do those rituals and like to have that structure, like to have those communities. And I don't see anything inherently wrong with that. I think your situation is a bit more nuanced because of the layers of trauma that you have with it. And so that's why I would say, just exercise with caution from your side. But you might be able to find, like, if it's something that you do want to start approaching more, you might be able to find an atheo-pagan group somewhere around you, or just people to explore that kind of stuff with. I don't have much more beyond that, just because it's not something that I personally practice. I don't know if Josie has views on that.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. I again just want to echo, I'm sorry that you had that really bad experience. I mean, bad parenting is bad parenting regardless if it's religious sometimes, and also when it's a void from religion as well. So I am sorry that you had to deal with that. Um so I have a pretty strong belief that humans kind of need their, and it's like, I don't say humans need this, but I think a lot of humans seek this, where it's kind of like it's not
Mhm.
spiritual, but it is kind of spiritual. Like for example,
Mhm.
when I go to the mountains and I sit on a mountain peak, like I'm not like, I think of it like a sanctuary, right? Where I'm like, I'm at peace. I'm at a moment of like, like sublime, like it's almost like I'm not worshiping nature, but I'm honoring it in a
Yeah.
way that is like different than,
Mhm.
anything else I do when it comes to like when I'm in those spaces. And
Yeah.
there is, I think, a need for humans to have that, I would say, spiritual nurturing, but it doesn't have to be so rigid in understanding. Like, I think that some people need rituals, some people need the ability to kind of like have patterns. And I like how Ben was saying, like people with tarot, people with stones, people with crystals, just understanding that like there's no factual basis behind
Yeah.
that being like a divine thing, but there is
Yeah.
something I think powerful about like kind of letting yourself into that like meditation space.
Mhm.
And going back to your statement about getting the ick of trying to find that feeling is, I think, a part of that trauma of like, I'm getting a spiritual whatever nourishment or whatever that is. And I'm just using spiritual as like a placeholder word, but whatever that
Mhm.
is that humans kind of like need to find a sense of peace within themselves, that
Mhm.
and if you're finding trauma within that, I think what Ben said, finding a therapist to help you talk through that, I think is very important. But having that
Mhm.
moments of quiet that you are seeking to be able to kind of just like zone out and be with yourself is a very
Mhm.
powerful, healthy thing that I think a lot of humans should be able to experience regardless of how it shows up in their own way. um so I think that acknowledgement of the fact that you have these feelings, I think, is a good first step. I think that you're saying,
Yeah.
wow, when I'm trying to do a breathing exercise, or I'm trying to sit in silence, and I'm trying to like, be one with myself, and now I'm having a triggered response, is something
Mhm.
that's really important to identify. And I will speak from my own personal traumas of PTSD, for example. Once I was able to
Mhm.
identify that I was triggered in a way that was not rational, like you said, it's like not rational,
Mhm.
but I'm still having a physical, emotional response because my brain is like going back to that emotional space, is
Mhm.
really important, because then you can just like step back and be like, it's okay. I'm having this response because of XYZ, and kind of like
Mhm.
reset your mind, and then kind of go back into it in a way that is that has real clarity to it. And
Yeah.
I think that is a sign of growth,
Yeah.
for you to be able to identify that. But anyways, Ben and I said a lot. I would love to hear your response.
I mean, I didn't know that there was like atheopaganism. I'm quite new to like the atheist scene, as it were. And I think like, that happened a while back, and like I went into back into paganism as a way to like cope with that, and I'm kind of like working through, like, literally it's been quite interesting to see like how I kind of found a home within paganism, and specifically like Norse paganism, and how I can like literally match each god that I felt close to with like a piece of my family that I was missing, and like how all this psychologically helped me overcome all this. And I do, like, I'm much better now, which is why I think I I less and less needed religion and more kind of came over to the side of like, okay, this is just me. And so I'm in a lot better of a place. Like, I really appreciate you guys like saying like that, you know, I do appreciate that. But I think it's when I can do like meditations and like regular sort of things. Like, I love stuff like that, but it's when people start to say like, connect with the earth and the energy, because like my mom she's like a pagan. She's like a reverend, and she claims like that we have a psychic link and that we have like, you know, that she can tell my feelings, and then yet she was really like that what she did was just the end of like a long series of like a really, like, she has borderline personality disorder. It was a really bad relationship. I was slowly trying to set myself away from it. And so now I think when I hear that type of like woo-woo-y stuff, I'm like, nope, unsafe, wrong, bad, back away, not, you know. And I think if there's like, it doesn't have to be atheo-pagan, but if it's like, if there's atheist people doing stuff and they don't have to do that woo-woo stuff, that is what I'm super interested in, because I think I can, you know, I'm not necessarily saying that I need to be like a woo-woo person. I'm saying it wrong. Like, woo is probably not a nice way of putting it. But like, I don't have to be that. But
you're safe. You're on a skeptic channel.
Yeah. But like, I don't want to be.
And plenty of the stuff you're saying, I will also freely call woo-woo. Like, because don't get me wrong. Like, as much as I want to be respectful to people of different belief systems, like especially ones where, you know, if people are going to identify with more spirituality, like, that's fine. But there definitely are some cases where people are using it irrationally and people are making decisions that are unsafe because of it. Like a lot of people that use that same terminology are David Avocado Wolf, Food Babe, like a bunch of those people on the internet that are saying that are opposing like evidence-based healthcare and like evidence-based medicine and all that. So definitely I am in agreement that there are boundaries that need to be set. Like, this needs to be like a personal meditative thing and not a we're going to oppose science thing. So I think we're on the same page.
Exactly.
Yeah, exactly. And like nutrition science is my absolute passion. So, and that's how I got into kind of like, that was like my roadmap into atheism, was like nutrition science and health, and counteracting all the misinformation that comes with that, and seeing the harm and the damage that misinformation can do. Like I think that it's just, I don't want to necessarily, but it's good to hear that there are sources like that, just because I just don't want to feel like this is limited. Like, I don't want to feel controlled basically by these feelings. I want to do what I want.
Well, yeah, and maybe like that's a step to, I mean, going in the direction that Josie was saying about, you know, getting out in nature and appreciating that. Like, you could find some scientific groups, probably like some people that are just like, let's go on a nature hike, or like let's go look for bugs outside. Let's go bird watch. Like, you can embrace that scientific side of yourself and still get that meditation benefit, still have kind of that ritual of like, if you want to set up a schedule too, like every time, like every day at this time, or like once a week at this time is my time to go out into the woods. I'm going to sit on a rock. Like, I'm going to do whatever. Like, you can have that sense of wonder, or you can like go look at the stars. Like, any of that stuff. Like, there are ways to kind of blend these things together. And I think too, if you go and read the side chat after, you know, you go get some rest tonight, there are lots of people in the side chat who have similar perspectives, and you might be able to connect with some people, even like over the internet, of people who want to talk about like nature stuff together, or want to talk about science together, or get involved with you in even more of the meditation side. I think you can find a good community that'll do that with you.
That's
absolutely.
awesome. Because like I wasn't even very woo-woo when I was religious. Like, I used to say that I was religious and not at all spiritual. So I didn't even really connect with it when I was a theist. So yeah, that's really awesome to hear. I really look forward to reading the chats, because I love nature as well. Like, that's what I love about Sweden. Like, I can go easily find any place in nature.
I'm so jealous. Sweden
I got
actually
very
puts
lucky. I'm
real
insanely
infrastructure.
lucky.
Like they have like public transit to hiking trailheads. I'm just like, I'm so jealous. Like, it's so great.
Well,
there.
if you ever want to visit, like, you have a place in Sweden to stay if you ever want to visit.
Oh my god, I might have to take you
We're
up on
taking
that.
I love
TACIS
all
to
of you guys.
Sweden.
Like, the line has been amazing.
Oh, that's
TACIS on
super,
tour.
that's
Let's
super
go.
great.
We got to go to Sweden.
Yeah, absolutely. And you know, and I really appreciate what you said about like trying to combat misinformation in diet culture
Yeah.
and things like that, because as a 9-year whole food vegan, I think that the misinformation that a lot of people who claim to be vegan, and I put air quotes, that are like eating fruit all day and not actually having true protein profiles and things like that make
No.
me very angry and very upset.
Yeah.
And you know, and as somebody who's been a thriving, you know, whole food vegan, and people are using spirituality language and woo woo stuff to try to claim that they can do this in a way that isn't scientific and actually harmful and can actually hurt people in irreparable ways is horrifying. So I really appreciate you grounding yourself in the science of like the reality of things, and really taking a step back for yourself and being like, okay, like I like to be able to meditate, or like to be able to sit in
Mhm.
quiet and to be able to sit in nature, but that doesn't have to have some mystic spiritual thing to it. It's just healthy for the human brain to be able to sit quietly and breathe. You know,
Yeah.
I think that's a very important thing. I think most science would actually, you know, agree with
Yeah.
me on that, right? It's like I always
yeah.
say the best prescription is going on a hike sometimes, right? It's just like going out there and unplugging from the morass of the world. So I think it's great, and I think you've identified a lot of the things that you already know, and I think I see a lot of growth. And so yeah, well, thank you for staying on with us. I know it's late
Yeah.
over there, and you know, is there anything else you would like to discuss before we move on?
I just want to thank, like, I've been watching the line, like, constantly, and on all of the shows, like, all the hosts that you guys have on, and it's been really, really helpful. And just, you know, it kind of made me have that breakthrough of, like, you know, I moderate a fitness and nutrition forum, and I'm super passionate about it. And I would never accept someone coming in saying, like, oh, I've tried this diet and it works for me. We would always be like, well, what's your evidence? What's your evidence? Like, you can't just say it works for you. And that kind of just made me go, okay, maybe I feel a connection to this religion, but it's just my personal connection, and that isn't evidence. And evidence does matter to me. And that was like the moment that I was like, oh, but yeah, I appreciate it. I'll read the chats later. You know, it's been a difficult time, but like I would say, like I have many sad chapters, but I'm not a sad story, as I absolutely refuse to be. And I really, really appreciate like all the things that y'all said. And I'll check the chat later, especially if anyone knows anything specifically about Brittany Hartley. I'd really love any feedback. So yeah, thank you so much.
Yeah, unfortunately, I don't know much about Brittany Hartley, but I will say chat loves the bibbity boppity bullshit, and I think it might be a thing that reoccurs on this show.
It needs to be some merch. We need some. Okay, Arden. When we get TACIS merch, we need one that says "That's some bippity boppity bullshit."
It is top tier. It's really good.
There is so much. Can I just say, like, one funny story? Even when I was a theist, like, I would be so frustrated in these communities, and I remember one time I had like a bag of runes hanging on a hook, and it fell off, and I was like, oh, my bag of runes fell off the hook, and they were like, one person was like, do you think that means anything? I was like, yes, I think that means the bag is too heavy for the hook to support. I was furious.
Yeah.
Oh no, a natural explanation.
Oh no, gravity. Oh gosh, not gravity. Oh. Awesome. Well, thank you, Lola, and you have a wonderful rest of your night, okay? Get some good rest.
I will. Thank you. Bye.
All right, bye. Great. That was a great call. So we have positions in the chat for the losers to defend. Cis allies require a license. Misgendering equals public peeing, and HRT in the water supply.
like getting a pie in your face.
I kind of like public peeing though.
I think it's public peeing. It should be held to the same standard.
Like, maybe I need to save this for the speech, but like imagine if you just freaked out cis people like they misgender. You're like, oh no, don't make me pee. Just like make it super sexualized too, like make them so uncomfortable that they misgendered you. Like, oh no, like even better if like misgendering was like a humiliation kink. It's like, oh no, don't make me come.
All right, we'll go with public pine. We'll go with public pine. But yes, this is what happens when a dyslexic reads too many words too quickly. Anyways, so thank you for that. We have a lot of fun things on this show today. And yeah, so let's go ahead and go down the list as they are. So we'll start with Vass, he, him pronouns from Georgia, and wants to become more aware of trans stuff. So yeah, tell us what you want to talk about.
Can you hear me?
Yes, I can, clearly.
Awesome. My headset's a little messed up, so I wanted to make sure.
Sounds great.
I'm trying to become a little more aware of trans. Well, I guess trans isn't necessarily the best. I don't really know how to use that word. If only because I've lived in effectively an echo chamber for so long. I've only heard the trans are trying to yada yada, all that stuff that Trump supporters say and all that stuff. Yeah, I'm sure you know what I'm talking about. But
yeah, of course.
Well, I'm trying to educate myself, and I like Forrest Valkai, and I remember him advertising this show on his to someone else who had similar questions. At least I think they were. I don't remember what the subject was at the time, but I felt like you guys might be able to push me in a more appropriate direction, because like the way I've been trying to approach it, it started to make me feel like I was being disingenuous by earlier you had someone y'all were talking about like Dungeons and Dragons and stuff. It makes me feel a little disingenuous playing female characters, because I myself identify as a he or a him, and then like in games when I play with a female avatar and I let people identify me as she her in those games, it makes me feel disingenuous, or like I'm tricking people, or playing at being a trans person, that kind of, you know what I'm saying? So like,
yeah, I do. And it's actually really funny because I felt, I'm not putting anything in your head, I promise, but like that was me as an egg though. Like when I was a lot younger, I would be playing games like using a guy character, and people would refer to me using he, him, and like this made up personality I had, and then I'd leave and be like, you know, that was nice. That'd be cool to be that person all the time. And then I came out as trans. So not putting this in your head, but
well,
but
it's the aversion in the opposite direction. So Vass, I want to say this real quick, because you started off with how to use the word trans. So I just want to start there really quick. So, you know, a trans person, a trans woman, a trans man, a trans non-binary, it's when you're describing the people, right? Like a person who is like a Black person, or, you know, an Asian person, and things like that. It's the word that kind of has the signifier. It kind of is the descriptor word before the noun, I guess it's the noun, or I guess and so for example, like a cis woman and a trans woman are just descriptor words to describe women in the different categories, right? And so that's kind of how. Does that answer your first question that you had about how to use the word trans?
For the most
trans
part,
community.
So like when you say a trans woman, that is someone who has changed from what people would consider a man to being a woman?
So to be more accurate, it would be somebody who was assigned male at birth, somebody, and then but their gender is that of a woman. I am a trans woman, so I acknowledge the fact that I was assigned male at birth, right? I know that, that was the sex that I, was born as. But my gender is the social construction around my identity. So my identity is that as a woman. So it just means that it doesn't align with that. A cis woman is someone who was assigned female at birth via their sex and is still a woman in gender. Does that make sense?
Okay. I still have a little trouble separating sex and gender, because there was the call
Great.
with
Yeah.
Valkai that I was listening to kind of explained it, and I'm starting to get it, but it's hard for me to separate those right now.
Yeah.
So I'm
So
trying.
think about
Yeah.
So
Great.
think about it like sex is your biology. It is what your body does, and then your gender is how you interact with the society around you. So for you, I'm making an assumption here that your body is male and has traits, as far as you know, are all consistent with being a male. But your gender, the way you identify yourself and the way you act in society, reflects as a man. Like if you went into public, you would tell people that you're a man because of the way you see yourself and the way you want other people to see you, correct?
For the most part, yeah.
So that's kind of the
In
distinction.
my
One's
case, I
biology,
don't.
one is how you interact with other people and how you
Okay,
see
fair
yourself.
enough. I guess it's a little odd for me because I use he/him pronouns, but like I don't care. I
Sure.
don't know if there's a thing for that.
So here's something about pronouns, and I really appreciate this conversation and you being vulnerable with us about these questions. I just want to start there. So for example, and this is where a lot of people who are coming to understand gender and pronouns and things like that get things kind of conflated. So pronouns are a form of linguistic expression of somebody's identity that they prefer. So, for example, I use she, her pronouns because I prefer through language to be referred to as a woman as my expression of who I am as I identify as a woman. Just like I'm wearing a dress right now is a form of gender expression to push my own femininity into what people are seeing around me. It's more of an expression than it is an identity. People are not their pronouns. You are not he, him as a identity. You are a man as an identity. Does that make sense? So that's why like pronouns are like, who cares? So you probably could be somebody who could wear, shorts, or if you had to, you could wear a dress or whatever. It's about the expression that those pronouns represent in a person versus the identity of me identifying as a woman. My womanhood doesn't come from my pronouns she, her. My womanhood comes from the identity that I am. Does that make sense?
All right, I think I understand what you've said so far. So just to see if I understand, using the label he/him is only basically like a shorthand for other people to get a general idea of me, but the way that I act doesn't necessarily have to be he/him. Is that
Exactly.
Yeah, exactly.
Right.
Yeah.
So for
and along with
example,
that,
okay?
if you like, well, I just
Oh,
want
you
to
go
say
ahead.
this, and Ben, I'll get to. The thing is, like, you have people who, and you would say feminine presenting men, right? People who are very flamboyant in their own presentation, but it's more femme than it is masculine, but they still identify as he, him, because their identity, it allows you to approximate their own manhood, even though they may be dressing in feminine ways, but they're still a man. Like you can, like a lot of rock stars and people like that. So the he him is just a form of expression to let people know in proximity to their identity if they so choose to. But Ben, you were going to say something.
Yeah. My comment was along the same lines of I feel like where there might be some disconnect of how much do pronouns matter. Like for you, and I'm making an assumption here that if you go out in public, people are very likely going to assume that you're a man and just going to default to calling you he and him, right? Is that true?
Yeah.
So the reason why we're so adamant kind of from our side about having people ask pronouns and have people list their pronouns is because for some people, like Josie was saying, some people don't have that assumption made about them. So let's say you're a man, but you like to dress like Michael Jackson or Freddie Mercury or something that could be seen as like gender ambiguous clothing, or like you have long hair and don't have facial hair, and so it's a bit confusing. Some of those people might feel uncomfortable being called she, her, but it's not necessarily always because of the words that bother them. It's the assumption. Like if someone calls me she, her, in my brain that says that person views me as a woman. That person sees me as something I'm not, and I'm uncomfortable. So for someone like you who people don't really mess that up, it might not seem like a big deal because you're probably pretty comfortable that the other person knows that you're a man and that they're not viewing you as something that you're not. But for us, it's if someone calls me she, her, it lets me know, hey, I'm not being seen in the way that I see myself. Somebody else is thinking I'm something that I'm not. What did I do wrong to be seen that way? Like it ends up causing a lot of distress, not because necessarily of the words, but because of the connotations of what those words mean.
All right. I think I'm understanding now.
Yeah.
So
Voss,
where
I
the
wanna.
yeah.
Go ahead.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Just make like another comment with that. And so that's why like kind of the most respectful thing, at least in our opinion, is to start asking more people what are your pronouns before having the conversation. So it's a way of, just in case my assumption is wrong, I'm still able to respect you, and I can make sure you're not going to feel misrepresented or like uncomfortable in the conversation. So it's like it's a form of respecting people who maybe don't have that assumption correctly made about them.
Fair enough. I can appreciate that. Where I work, we had a little debacle where two people were consistently misgendered, and I try to avoid that. But back to the, if you don't mind, to the disingenuous, you know what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
I'm not very good at this.
It's all right. No, it's fine. It's hard because there's two people and you're calling into a show and there's an audience. So we understand that nerves get there. So no worries. No judgment. Go ahead.
So as an example, using D&D, since I'm so familiar with that, as an example, I tend to play a very round roster of characters, but it feels like almost outing myself, even if I'm not necessarily trying to or whatever, but like getting into character feels like I'm being disingenuous to everybody else or myself. So as an example, I tend to act more like my character like I have a female kobold sorcerer that I'm playing in one of my friends' campaigns, and I tend to act more feminine when I do that, but amongst them, it's starting to feel a little disingenuous, especially since, like I was saying, it's a bit of like that almost transphobic echo chamber, because they have the whole, a lot of them still hold on to the gender's a binary and it's the same as sex and all of that. So it's starting to feel almost suffocating doing that. So
Yeah, I
like they're not
totally
terrible
understand what you're
people, they
talking
just
about.
have antiquated views.
Yeah, no, this is actually this is why tabletop role playing is always a very critical topic of discussion, especially when it comes to gender and also transness. A lot of people find out that they're trans on the tabletop because they're like, "Oh, I really like playing this female character," and it like just fits like a glove, and things like that happen. And it's unfortunate because you're just trying to play a character. You're just trying to have fun, right? Like, you know, just like and I don't want to liken this, but like a drag queen plays a character, right? They're normally cis men, and they are, you know, dressing up and being a character, and they have a drag persona and everything like that. But they take the makeup off, and they're men most of the time, right? And so it's like, it's very human to want to embody different characters. And somebody who runs D&D campaigns myself, like I encourage characters
Yeah,
to
same.
be, yeah, right. So I encourage characters
Yeah.
to be in their comfort zone. I've had non-binary characters play male characters. I've had people who are non-binary playing gendered characters. I've had gendered people that have, you know, that are men play non-binary characters. And I think that's the beauty of the game, and it's the spirit of the game of being able to do, it's the point of being these characters. And if you have a group of people who don't let you interact with that, or if they are being incredibly sexist, extra sexist, because of the fact that I know the games that you're talking about, I know exactly where you're coming from, where like a male character or a person who is male or man will play a woman character, and then all of a sudden you're playing on a table full of you know, men, and then they're like being extra sexual to your character, and it's uncomfortable and it's annoying, and it's like, geez, that's awful. And it's like, you know, welcome to the taste of what womanhood actually is in the real world, because that actually happens to us on the regular as women. But it is not a fun time, and you should have conversations with these folks. It's like, I'm just playing a character. Why are y'all being so weird about this? Like, you know, is this not okay? Like, and this opens an opportunity for you to kind of have this conversation with your friends. And I know it can be really uncomfortable when you're trying to play a game, but they've already made it uncomfortable. And I'm sorry you're having that experience, because that's annoying as hell. And I'm sorry, because you should be able to play how you want to play, and you shouldn't be judged by the way you're playing a character.
Well, again, they're not terrible people, but starting that conversation, I'm not sure how many people you normally have in your D&D games, but the D&D games that me and my friends have is one dungeon master and anywhere from 4 to 10 people. So it can kind of feel
people.
like
I've run a table. I've run a table of 10
no.
people before. It's chaos. It's absolute chaos. But yeah, like if you're getting
The
an
biggest
inkling
table I
that
ran
they
was
are being
12,
kind of toxic,
but
no, but if you are playing with a table that can be kind of toxic, like, you may have to think to yourself, like, is this a table that I want to play with? Like, if certain things are going to come out that are kind of in a way bigoted or toxic, like maybe that's not ultimately a safe group to be in. And you have to make that decision for yourself. But
Yeah,
like, I personally, like, if I got a whiff of that at my table, I would boot them. But that's just me.
that's understandable. It's really hard to let go, though, because I've known them since college years ago.
Sure.
Oh God, it's so long.
Yeah.
But and then, like, I mean, most of the bigotry is from not this particular issue, but
that makes sense.
I wanted to understand more of, I guess, I hate to phrase it like this because it sounds like I'm othering you guys, but like your side of things, to try and see if it could shed some light on, I don't know, maybe why I'm feeling this way, or a better way to approach it. Because like, I don't want to be a bigoted jerk. I want to improve
Oh, I
myself.
definitely get that.
You know what
Right.
I'm saying?
I absolutely.
Yeah.
And I'm glad you're having this call with us, because for me, it's
Mhm.
like a lot of times when these calls happen on the show, I'm going to be honest, they start from a really toxic place, but you started with an actual really good faith conversation. And I love that we're having this call, because this is a pure example of what a good faith conversation is about when we're trying to learn about each other. And what and I'm going to talk in nonprofit speak, but this is called cultural competency, right? You're trying to be culturally competent for the people that are in your world around you, in your community. And it's so incredibly important and open-minded of you to be able to be like, hey, I'm going to talk to some trans people about this, because these are things that I'm even dealing with as a cis person on a game table. So I want to understand this topic better, because even in this fantasy setting, you're experiencing what I hate to say, you're experiencing transphobia, my friend.
Yeah.
And even though you are a cis person that is assigned male at birth and are a man, you even playing in just tangentially a character that is a woman character, you are experiencing transphobia. And I'm sure that makes you very uncomfortable. And I think that's why a lot of this conversation is happening right now, because this is what Ben and I and a lot of people who are trans in the chat experience on a daily basis, just because we walk outside into the world, right? And so I really appreciate it. So going back to the original questions between this difference between sex and gender, because a lot of this always hinges to that question. And we're probably gonna take another 9 minutes on this call, and then we're probably gonna have to move forward. And then you can call again. By the way, I really hope you do call again.
Yeah.
Because this has been a really helpful conversation. But going back to sex and gender, I like to use a couple of analogies, and I'm kind of known for it. They put it on a coffee mug here, for example. But essentially, there's a couple ways that you look at it. And the way that I see it, in going back to the original part of conversation, is some women can have penises and some women don't. Right? Like, it's just a logical sentence, right? It's like that is the statement that I will say. And a lot of people who see sex and gender as the same would see that statement as incorrect. So I'm going to ask you the question: can some women have penises and some women don't? Is that an actual statement? Some women have penises and some women don't. Do you agree with that statement?
So I've been listening to Forrest's talks on this. So after hearing that, I would have, if you had asked me this 2 weeks ago, I would have said no. But after hearing his talks, yes.
Okay, great.
I don't.
So let's. Sure. Right. And I always like to say this is a statement that follows is like, some coconut trees have coconuts and some coconut trees don't. Right? Like, those comparison analysis of like doesn't change the fact that it's a coconut tree, right? The tree is the sex, and the tree is the gender, and the coconuts are the sex, right? That's how I kind of liken it to, right? So it's like the gender is always the thing that is immutable in that conversation. So I'm going to follow it up with another statement for you. A black woman, a blonde woman, a cis woman, and a trans woman, are they all types of women?
I don't see why not.
Exactly. Okay, great. That was the first part of our conversation about trans and the trans using trans and trans women, right? They're just different types of women. We all have different descriptor words to describe women in that way. So now that you have that concept and understand that there's a difference between sex and gender, you're going to have a better, more accurate conversation of being able to explain the reality of the trans lived experience. Because as a trans woman myself, I don't shy away from the fact that I was assigned male at birth as sex, right? My sex is male. That's what happened. That's what I have to live with. And that's what makes me trans, because I identify as a woman. So when you're having these conversations with other people, we are able to separate words like sex and gender, because language and the way that we speak is descriptive. So when we are trying to use language to describe things, it's better to use more accurate terms when you're describing something, to become more uh, intellectual or more understanding of someone's lived experience. Because if you combine gender and sex, you are really dumbing down the lived experience and the texture that those two words have. And I always jokingly say, do you have sex with somebody or do you have gender with somebody? Right? Like, obviously, you have sex with somebody. You don't have gender with somebody. That doesn't make sense. It's because the two words linguistically have a difference. If it were the same, then linguistically you could use both of those words interchangeably, but you can't. So that's why those two words are separate. And when you're having conversations with other people that are not there yet, it's good to be able to start with the differentiation between sex and gender, because when you start there, you're able to help people understand that some women show up differently, some men show up differently, and it's okay. It doesn't change the idea that there are types of women, there are types of men, there are types of people. Does that make sense?
Yeah. I've been listening to a lot of these recently, so this is all. I mean, now it's starting to click more now. But like I was originally following it. You've shed more light on it. So is there? Because I know I don't know the specifics of what LGBT, all the rest of it is. I know what is it? Lesbian, bi, gay, trans, plus
And queer.
is there one of queer? Thank you.
Mhm.
Is there a label for someone like me who just doesn't care?
Like, for
Like,
gender at all?
don't
Like
get
your
me
own
wrong.
personal gender?
Yes, like because
Yeah.
I don't care whether someone labels me A or B or anything in between, but like I understand that there are. I hate to use the word categories because that makes me sound like I'm trying to put everything in a nice tidy box.
I just use
And
categories.
based on
It's
what I've
fine.
heard,
Yeah. Yeah, you
fair
could.
enough.
There's a variety of things that, and like the labels specifically are meant for you to communicate yourself to other people. Like, and different people use different labels a little bit differently. So, like there are, even within like the non-binary umbrella, there are people who don't identify with gender at all, like want no part of gender. It sounds like that might not be quite the perfect match, because it sounds like you do utilize aspects of gender and maybe go between and I could be totally wrong, but there are people who would call themselves agender, who want none of it. They're also like maybe like a gender ambivalence situation where it's just like any gender, or like there's some people who identify with multiple genders. And if you want to, you can even do some research on your own and look up some of these labels, like how people use them, because like, even though your situation sounds unique and sounds out there for you, there are plenty of people who probably share the same thoughts about gender. And I think you'll be surprised by the amount of people who would fall into a similar situation.
Absolutely. And boss, you are actually doing a lot of that when you're playing these characters. Like for example, like when you're playing those, you're using she her pronouns on that kobold of yours, which sounds awesome by the way. I love kobold characters. But you know, as far as for yourself, it's like a lot of people call in the show and they say any all pronouns. Right? They don't care if you know, because I could mistakenly think Voss is a gender neutral pronoun. I could have started saying, "Hey, Voss, they them," or Voss, she her, and you know, and if I did that, would you have felt like if I didn't have your pronouns and we didn't ask, and I was like, "Oh, Voss, you know, this woman, she her from Georgia," how would you feel if I said that?
I wouldn't really have cared. So
Yeah,
the way I know you said you have a limited amount of time left, so I kind of want to.
but go
It's
for it. No, go for it.
I generally go with whatever gender fits the situation of what I'm doing. And as for my D&D group, since it's such a difficult conversation for me to broach, I've kind of started trickling in whenever someone misgenders the character. I'm like, you mean the correct gender, right? So, like, whenever they say he when referring to my character, I'm she.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
I've tried to do that. I don't know if that's a good way of doing it, but like
I think it's great. I think
anyway,
it's great because like it's
Yeah.
world breaking, right? You're trying to be immersed in a game.
Mhm.
You know, it's your character.
Yeah.
It's like, you know, it's just role playing rules of tabletop RPGs. It sounds like you play a lot of tabletop RPGs. It's like, you know, if you like, I as a DM, I'm always using the characters' names at the table, and I'm always, there's the person that's the player, and then there's the character that the character is playing, and it's important to respect the way the game is being played, and it's important for those people to respect the role play. So it's absolutely okay for you to to gender your character
Yeah.
properly because it's breaking the immersion for you.
well, I
Does that make
appreciate
sense?
your yeah, I appreciate y'all elucidating on these things, and I would like to call back if I have more
Sure,
questions in the future,
please.
which at
Absolutely.
this point
Yeah.
I'm fairly certain I definitely will. But y'all have been great. I've been seeing some of your chat in the bottom left-hand corner of my screen, and they are both heartwarming and hilarious. So
Congrats on
I look
leveling up
forward
Yes.
to
twice through
seeing
this
more of
call.
that. Um,
Yeah,
Yes.
you leveled up for
I don't
sure.
suppose either of you put your
Yeah.
D&D content online, do you?
I
I
have a
did a
channel.
little bit. I did a little bit before, but I
Yeah,
don't have any active games right now, online at least.
I
That's
there's
fair.
a Twitch
I was
channel
just
that I
wondering if
used to
there was
have.
anything I could watch, but
Yeah, unfortunately, if I start Awful Good Again, which was a game that a Twitch channel that I had, where I was a player and there was a DM that I like. If it ever starts again, I will make sure to mention it in the show that I've started that
Yes.
again. But right now, unfortunately, I don't have any
Yes.
content. I would like to start that content again, but right now I'm having a lot of fun in my private games at home. Yeah,
same.
Mhm.
Well,
yeah,
I appreciate you guys answering my questions. This was a lot less
yeah,
intense than I thought it would be, especially considering some of the other
yeah.
people I've heard. But
Well, if you're
I
willing
hope you
to be
guys have a
nice
great
and you're
day, and
willing to
I'll.
be, yeah, if you're willing to be nice and respectful and be willing to engage with us in the conversation and honestly answer the questions, like we don't yell at people for no reason. Like the people who get scolded are people that are clearly not listening and not there to have a conversation. But if you call back just like this, I'm not worried about you getting yelled at on this show.
Yeah,
Every time
absolutely.
you say something
So
like that, I think back to the people who deal with have to deal with Matt Dillahunty.
Well, yeah, I know, and he'll
Oh
yell at people
lordy.
for the same reasons. Like he yells at people that aren't listening and who aren't having an honest discussion. So as long as you are honest and you approach it like this, then you shouldn't have any issues.
yeah, absolutely. This is a great
Well, I
conversation,
was
and I
always
do
taught
hope
to
you
be
call back
honest,
again.
so
Yeah, Yeah,
I
exactly.
was always taught to be honest, and I figured this would be a nice step to help me understand, I guess, your side of the
Yeah. And it could be our
conversation.
side
Words
of
are hard.
the conversation. You know, this is our side of the conversation. I think that there really was no sides here. I think we were just better understanding ourselves and each other and figuring out where we go next. So I really appreciate you so much. And we're going to have to let you go, but please call back some other time as well. We also have non-binary people who are hosts on the show, and people who identify outside of the gender binary, Luxander, for example. So if you want to have a conversation with someone who is outside of like, you know, man and woman, it would be a good conversation to have for sure.
Yeah.
Do you know when that? Who was it? Luxander?
I think next week.
Luxander.
I think next
week. Mm-hmm.
Next week? Okay, cool. Then I'll see about trying to get in a call next week to talk to them.
Yeah.
They prefer it.
I don't want to start off already misgendering them.
No, it's okay.
Okay. It's or you can use Lux. You can say the name,
Lux.
and that will be okay. Yeah, say Lux.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, cool beans.
Perfect.
Well, thank you guys
Awesome.
for
Great.
helping me out with my questions, and I hope you have a good day. I'm going to be listening to the rest of your show to see if I can get any more answers from other people's questions.
Great.
Awesome.
Thank you. All right. Have a good rest of your day. All right. Bye-bye. All right. Wow, we've had a lot of really great calls today. I'm happy with the calls that we've had. So we have two more calls.
I think that one was a bit unexpected with that upward trajectory. Like I wasn't expecting that to be as fruitful as it was. So it was good stuff.
Absolutely. Yeah, it was really, really great. So we'll just got two more calls. We will get to you. So we're going to go ahead and go right down the list, starting with SB, he, him from India. It sounds like we're on speaker. If you could take us off speaker, that'd be great. Hello, SB. How are you?
Hi, SB.
I'm getting a lot of feedback.
Am I not audible to you? If I'm not audible,
now I can
hear. Should I drop the call?
Yeah, we can hear you.
Oh well, yeah, we can hear you now.
There's in between speaking, it sounds a little fuzzy.
Okay, wait. Just hold on a second. I'll just turn off the fan. How are you, Dr. Ben? How are you, Josie?
Hey,
doing well.
Doing
How
right.
are you?
Yeah. So I was just 2 days ago. I was just looking on some Jubilee debate because I was just bored out of my mind. And there I saw a point by a conservative. He made the point that we shouldn't give puberty blockers to kids who are not 18 basically, because they have a significant effect or something like that, and they cannot consent.
Yeah, well, I'm going to say something here. Giving a puberty blocker to someone after age 18 is not going to do anything for their puberty. So it's pointless to wait for a puberty blocker. It will influence their fertility. It'll make them not fertile while they're on it. But it will not undo any puberty that they've already had by age 8. Like by age 18, you're almost completely done with puberty, if not completely done. So giving a puberty blocker after age 18 is pointless. So
yeah, and I'm unmuting you now. Go ahead, SB. You're just a lot of feedback. Now you're back online. Go ahead, SB.
Did I say something wrong?
Yeah. No, I muted you because there's a lot of background noise. And if we can't stop it, we're gonna have to cancel the call. Yeah, it's a little bit too much. I can't understand what you're saying.
Yeah, this can't. I'm sorry, guys. We gotta.
Yeah. I'm sorry,
That's
SB.
We'll
We'll try
next
to answer your
with
question.
better audio.
Yeah.
You can answer the question off air if you want. Like, you guys can give a little rundown on the topic. Go for it.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, so
all right.
I'm happy to talk about the consent issue with puberty blocker. So like I already addressed, it's absolutely pointless to give a puberty blocker outside of the window of puberty because that's literally the whole point. If somebody is going to transition after age 18 or after the completion of puberty, all you can do is hormone therapy and surgical intervention. But I went into a lot of detail about the consent issue last week. Actually, SB, if you go back and watch that show, I go in a lot of detail of the process for transition at each stage of development, and then also outline the issue of consent, because it's not the minor that ultimately consents. It's the parents and the healthcare providers. And most of the time, people are going to have at minimum 2 healthcare providers, if not 3 or 4, or even more than that, weighing in on this decision for a minor. So you've got their primary care, you've got their psychologist or psychiatrist. In a lot of states require those to be PhD psychologists. You have endocrinology or adolescent medicine. You have a whole team of people, and you have the parents, and you have the minor. So it's not like when we say that you're giving puberty blockers to minors, it is not the minor consenting. It is the entire team of people consenting based on symptoms and distress reported by the minor. So you can watch last week's episode for kind of more in-depth discussion on that.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you for that. And I believe this is Faye. She, they, somewhere in the United States. Hello, Faye. How are you?
I'm doing okay.
Is it Faye? Or
Yes.
is the name unknown?
No,
Okay. Sorry if
it
I
is
just
for
outed
me.
your name. Okay, all right. It seems that we've had calls before, so apologize if I outed your name.
I was trying to be a little more discreet because
Oh,
of where I'm at and
oh, I understand.
but
Well, I didn't tell you what your location is. So it just says USA. So we'll just go with that then.
sure thing, because
Yeah, for sure.
I don't know too many other people that watch your show, but
Sure.
yeah, no, I watched last week's show, and Dr. Ben, he actually gave me a term for what I've been feeling, the imposter syndrome, I guess.
Oh yeah,
Just
I've had that
feeling-
too with my transition. Yep, I think a lot of trans people have. What's your particular situation with that?
Well, I do have support, family, and a couple of friends that acknowledge who I am, but with the way that everything's been going and having some legal issues of my own, I've been really fearful for where I'm at in life and where I could be potentially going, and I just wanted to, I don't know, get some confirmation and just I want to know that it's okay that I'm detransitioning, even though I don't feel like myself.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it sounds like if the detransition is more related to circumstance and safety, and not related to like I feel horrible that you're in that situation, that you've even had to consider that and go through that, because I can't imagine being in that situation. But it doesn't make you any less of a trans person that you're looking out for your own safety and that you're doing what you need to do in your own circumstances. Like, I hope that other people aren't being shitty to you about it, but it sounds like your situation is not one of those cases where like, it doesn't sound like you're detransitioning for attention. It doesn't sound like you're doing that for some other secondary gain. It sounds like this is for safety, and that you need to prioritize your safety and well-being. And this is the way that you've seen is the best way to do that. So, you don't have to feel ashamed that is like, I'm so sorry that you have to experience that. Like that's my thoughts on this. It's not that you're a bad person. It's not that you're not a trans person. It's just that I feel awful that you have to experience that suffering in order to look out for your own safety.
Thank you, Dr. Ben.
Yeah. And nobody should judge you for the decisions that you have to make for yourself. And maybe a way to look at it is, even if you are having to take the step of detransitioning, it doesn't, I guess a lot of it is like, rather than saying, am I trans or am I not trans, I would say, are you cis or not? And if the answer is you're not cis, that's good enough, right? Like, you, like, no, there is no special thing that needs to happen for you to be trans. The only thing that needs to happen is if you identify as cis or not, because people who identify as cis are pretty confident the fact that they're cis. It's very,
Yeah.
it's like how it kind of shows up. And sometimes it's hard to say I'm trans, and I think it's easier for some people to say, well, I'm not cis. And that's okay. Right? It's fine to say that you're not cis if you don't want to identify with the marker of trans, and that allows you to feel comfort in that. But just remember, and we've had, even our one of our hosts, Arden, shares this in her own story about having to detransition before as well, and how hard that is for that situation. But it still doesn't change who you are or any of those things, because people have to do things in their own journey. I know many trans people that have had to make that decision for their own safety, and then are able to come back to it if necessary, or live their life in the way that they feel most comfortable in being able to succeed. But just know, you are a real person. You are a real human with real feelings, and that you are valid in
Yeah.
whatever decision that you make. Does that help?
Yes, ma'am, it does. Thank you.
Yeah,
I'm
absolutely.
very of like I lived a fake life for over 30 years, and I finally figured out, thanks to you guys, I finally figured out what I am, who I am. And
Mhm.
now having to basically step back into that closet and shut the door, it's painful. But thank you
Yeah,
guys for the validation.
absolutely. Like, we can, you are living who you are, and we as a community will embrace anyone at any step of the journey that they are. And the fact that you have the knowledge of knowing who you are and understanding that you're not cis is a gift, and you have that. And regardless of where you sit in that transitional timeline, or however you see it, is just a step in the just a bump in the road to your own self and who you are as a person. And you knowing this about yourself is the gift that helps you move forward. And that a lot of people, even cis people, walk through the world never questioning who they actually are. And the fact that you've had the opportunity to do all of those things is incredibly powerful as a person. And so, don't take away your well fought wins in your own self identity, because there are still people that don't even understand why they're cis, and they're walking through the world just kind of just being these people. And you actually have a deeper understanding about yourself than most people walking around the world do. And that's great. and you should be proud of that.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. And and I'm sure I've said it to you before, and and I'll say it to other folks, as many as I can. Find community. Even in places where you think that there are not people. There, I know, because I ran a survey that surveyed 92,000 people in every corner of this country, including every US territory and military bases overseas. We are out there. Trans people are out there, and community exists in every corner of this country. And it is important for you to find that community, because you are not the only person feeling this right now. There are hundreds, thousands of people that are exactly in the same position that you are right now. And it's important to know that this is completely normal and okay and valid for you to have to make these decisions. But it's important for you to continue to find community to be able to support you and understand your lived experience.
Absolutely. I actually have a couple of online communities that I'm a part of, but unfortunately, being way out in the boonies where I'm at, I'm in the middle of nowhere. You wouldn't even realize that you drove through an actual town. Like the population of my town makes it classified as a village. It doesn't even reach to the status of a town yet. Less than
Yeah.
1,000 people in this little village, and so it makes it a little difficult when you're pretty much the only one within a 50-mile radius, like
Yeah.
myself.
Yeah. That you know of.
And they're
Right.
yeah, of course, that I know of.
Yeah.
But and the little village that I'm in, very very decent people. At least they'll either treat me with respect, or they'll just avoid me at all costs. I don't catch a whole lot of BS around here, but it's still just loneliness.
Yeah, absolutely. And Pride is coming up in June. It's a great opportunity for you to find a local area, even if it's a 50-mile drive. There's always opportunities if you can find ways to go to a Pride event. I know some people that are also in very similar positions as you, being incredibly in rural areas, hard to reach places. But there are going to be hopefully Pride events around you close enough for you to be able to make that trip, and be able to find community, and just find the Pride delegation of trans people in the parade and jump in and be like, hey, I'm here too, and just run into the freaking parade and march with them. It's a good way to kind of like find that community, because I can guarantee you, if you find a Pride, a parade or an event that's close by, you're going to find people that are saying the exact same thing you are. And it's really important to find that solidarity.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And not to down on that idea, because I'm sure that there are, but I am also in Utah.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
red state as well as Mormon run. It's a little difficult. But thank you guys so much.
Yeah. There are prides in Utah. They're there.
Oh yeah.
I know they are. Yeah, and I know it can feel hard, and you feel like you can be alone in these situations, but I guarantee you there are thousands of trans people that are feeling exactly like you are, and it's completely valid and okay, and you're a wonderful human and a wonderful person. And you are doing the work of existing, and that is hard sometimes. And, and I say this to a lot of people, to exist as a trans person in the Trump era is an act of defiance. So every time you wake up, I have a trans elder of mine that says, and she's like, she's in her 70s, and she goes, every time I open my eyes is a day of revolution. And I'm like, hell yeah, right? Because they don't want us to live. Yeah, I know, right?
Yeah.
And so that's the reality. Is don't get down on yourself. I know it's hard when I say that, but I'm happy you are there, and I'm happy that you are able to exist even in these rural areas, because there are people around you and people who may know of you that are probably being like, yeah, I'm so glad, because that means that there is some form of safety there, and that is through you. But whatever you have to do to keep yourself safe, you keep fighting the good fight, and just know that we are cheering you on, no matter what you do, whatever you have to do.
Thank you guys, and just to all the other trans people that may be in Utah, you're not alone either.
Yeah, that's right. I know. I surveyed hundreds of them. There's hundreds of you in Utah. I already know. I surveyed a bunch of you. It's probably thousands if the numbers are right. So yeah, you're great. Well, is there anything else before we let you go?
No, ma'am. I think that covered it. Thank you guys again.
Yeah, keep your chin up. We're fighting for you.
Yeah,
y'all are awesome. Y'all try to have a good day.
Yeah, you too. All right, much love. Bye. All right, and that was our last call. It's hard. It's a hard world right now.
Yeah.
So just know we are all in this fight together, no matter where we sit on our own personal transitional stories or where we are in different locations. But we are a strong community. We're a close-knit community. We may be small, but we are mighty. And we're going to stand with each other at all times. And we're gonna make it through it. We're gonna make it through it. We have to be resilient. But you know what I say about resiliency? Just because you can take a punch doesn't mean it doesn't hurt. And it's okay to feel that and to deal with that. That's what it's about. Is like, we have to be the warriors on the field, but we also have to take care of ourselves and do self-care, because it's not easy doing what we do. And I'm not saying about me and Ben doing this. I'm talking about the community.
Everyone.
Surviving, existing. That's what it's about. But anyways, so it is time for super chats, and remember that to do hashtag Team Josie, hashtag Team Ben, and we will be defending the positions. And it looks like we have votes are still coming in, so make sure you vote. Yep, and
and this first one's a fence sitter. Come on, people. We got 50 Canadian. Well, thank you for that generous donation from Ayla Ursus. Won't be able to watch, so this is all I can send. Hashtag Team Ben, hashtag Team Josie. Thank you so much. But you are a fence sitter, and your votes will not count. So
£5 from Mystic Minds Analysis Tavern. What's your biggest point of trans hope? Here in the UK, literally thousands protested against the Supreme Court decision. Hashtag Team Josie. Yeah. Biggest point of trans hope. I mean, I'm going to point to my work that I do. The fact that I nearly have 100 people across this country right now that are considering running for office, despite the fact that they're trans and despite that there's Trump. So that brings me so much trans hope, that there are so many brave humans out there that are going to put themselves on the line to be able to fight for a better future. What about you, Ben?
Yeah. Similar in the fact that there are so many people standing up and fighting. And with regard to the trans military situation, the majority of people are saying, fuck it, I want to fight this to the end, which is incredibly powerful to see. Like with any other group of people, like as far as military like situations go, I mean, more recently we saw that whole exodus with people refusing to get the COVID vaccine and stuff. And I know the DOJ, like in defense of the trans ban, so everybody's kind of banking on those people coming back and like filling the spots for whatever trans people were going to leave. Like almost nobody took that offer and came back. So like I'm seeing some hope, like from the trans people that are actually the people willing to fight for their spots to stay, actually holding the line. But I mean, also outside of trans specific things, the fact that everything else is such a shit show that people are just in general like tired of it. Like people are frustrated about the entire situation. And so even though a lot of it's not specifically trans related, a lot of that could be directed in favor of trans people because they're so like the people in charge are disenfranchising their own base, which actually could play a lot in our favor. So we'll see how things go. It's still gonna be rough. It's gonna be absolutely rough in the meantime. But if we keep holding the line, like there's a lot we can do by holding this line.
Absolutely. Showing courage on and off the battlefield.
Yeah.
5. This is you.
I think it's me. Yeah, £5 from Jessica. Dr. Ben, after your wonderful recommendation of chiropractic last week, I started it to cure my autism. Didn't work. You owe me. Hashtag Team Ben 100. We're already starting on Ben 100. So I don't know, Josie, I don't know if you saw the trend, but David Haxor in the side chat like started a trend where he will start a count up to Ben 10 with super chats, and then other people started joining in to fuck up the numbers, and then he started going to letters and then went past 10, and it's just chaos. So we'll see if I saw David in the side chat, so we'll see if David decides to do a Ben 10 this week, but I think that's what the Ben 100 was in reference to.
For sure. $5 from Curse Chaos. Hey there, veteran trans people. Today is my 1-year HRT anniversary. Yay!
Congrats.
And I've been in this community roughly the same time. Yay! Hashtag Team Josie. Hashtag TransFem Rep. Let's go. Congrats.
$10 from Corinthian Win. Is there a good way to ask my 5-year-old how to call me mama? He understands that I'm a trans woman and uses the right pronouns, but he's used to calling me dad. I think you could pretty easily like communicate with that with him and say, hey, dad is usually for someone who's a man and mom is usually for someone who's a woman. And since I'm a woman, and you could kind of gently walk your 5-year-old through that. And I think it might not be too hard to communicate that.
Yeah, and there's just a lot of ways to be able to do it. Like there's a way of like, I feel like more I feel like more like your mom than your dad, kind of jokingly, it's like, and there's ways to do it. And just be like, hey, I feel like your mom, and that's something you can do. $4.99 from Luis Richardson. I still say demonstration. Oh, wait. Yeah, I'm sorry. I still say demonstration sports with cis trans athletes would show there's no difference between them. I agree.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and that's what the data shows. But unfortunately, people do not like the data. And we're arguing with people who don't actually read the data and do not care about the data. So
yeah, weight is a much better factor determinant of things. Yeah. But things are sexist, and they don't want women playing with the boys because the boys get better equipment, the boys get better fields, the boys get better training, the boys get better coaches, and they don't want women to have access to those things. They want to keep giving women subpar things, so therefore
Mhm.
the men can be stronger and more adept because they have better everything when it comes to sports, and they have all that stuff. So it's a lot of that too. It's
Yeah.
patriarchy, it's dominance. How dare cis women come in and dominate men's sports? Oh my gosh, heaven be.
It's like the same propaganda. It's the same propaganda that's like going on in the DPRK right now. I don't know if anyone is following the fact that they had like they opened their country like for the Pyongyang marathon recently, and so a bunch of YouTubers like became amateur athletes just so they could go secretly like talk to people in North Korea. But like there was they had two separate teams of people. So they had the athletes that were from the DPRK, and then foreigners were in a separate category for the event. So then that way they could say that like they didn't have to compare the competition. But it looked like from one of the videos, one of the foreign runners was actually like doing pretty well, and someone like told him to slow down so that a Korean could win. Like so it's like a similar level of propaganda with men being told that like no, we're gonna tell the women to slow down so that no one thinks that they're better than men in sports.
Exactly. $10 from Ahmad. The only reason I'm staying in this stupid country is it's easier for me to get surgeries. I have 2 scheduled this fall, and I have bottom surgeon picked out. After bottom surgery, I'm getting out. Do what you got to do.
Yeah.
Do what you got to do.
Yeah.
Nobody will fault you at all.
Right. 15 currency units from Fishy. Myanmar. Oh, interesting.
Yeah.
No, I think that's Malaysia.
That's
That's the caller from earlier.
Malaysian.
Oh yeah, Malaysia, not
currency
Myanmar.
units from Fishy.
Yeah.
I'm from Malaysia, a country that criminalizes us. I'm fighting for my current and future siblings. # Team Josie for the activism works. Yeah, great talking to you, Fishy. I hope everything goes well for you.
Malaysia's a beautiful country too. It's such a shame that they have to deal with all that. I've been to Kuala Lumpur, saw the Kuala Lumpur towers that are like made of aluminum. They're incredible. It was a lot of fun. Yeah, it's cool stuff. $4.99 from Luis Richardson. Fight or flight. Being stealth for 40 plus years. I guess I'll stay in Texas and fight when it will count the most. Yeah, thank you. Texas is rough. Rough.
$5 from Mira G. Stuck in Florida. Wish I could move. I'd rather fight from somewhere safe. My fight is living as myself every day. Option 3, all my love. # Team Josie.
Yay.
And yeah, definitely do what's right for you if you need to stay or if you need to leave. But yeah, hold that line if you can. But
yep, and I talked to a candidate today that's running in Florida, and I'm a super trans man, and there's also a special election for Vance Aarons, who's running for Senate District 19, and her election is on June 10th, June 20th, 10th. I don't know. I need to remember what that number. It's one of those 2 days. But so Florida has a lot of really great trans people like trying to lead out there, and it's going to happen soon. We had a lot of people run last cycle too.
Awesome.
$10 from Skeptoidius. $10 for Skeptoidius. Josie injunctions update. Got a letter back from the courts. They had me fill out a form papyrus form and sent it back. They received it at the beginning of last month. No word since. # Team Josie. Well, I'm glad you filled out the form to make them, do something about it. I'm hoping the best. So yeah, I know we talked about that last time. So I know it's been a minute, and I've had a lot of court things go through my head recently with all the other stuff that's happening. So yeah, keep us updated. Let us know.
Another $5 from Skeptoidius. Ben looks like he's gaining a bit of muscle, like a beefy buff taco. Looking good, Dr. Ben. # Team Dr. Ben. # Do you live and lift, bro? This shirt is just proportioned nicely to make me look extra beefy. No, I've gained some chub because I've been eating my feelings. That's the actual answer, because it sucks to exist right now.
Yeah.
And yeah,
Or play
I've
it off
been-
as bulk. What are you doing?
yeah, I
Come
know, but
on.
I've been enjoying some tacos. I live right next to Mexico. Like, what am I supposed to do?
Oh, okay.
Support local
Okay, fair enough.
business.
Yeah. $5. Oh wait, I think it's you, right? Or no, it's me. No,
No, I
$5
heard
from
last one.
Myra G. I just wanted to stop and let Fishy know that she has a beautiful voice. All the love to you, Fishy. Be safe. Hashtag Team Josie. Still love you though, Dr. Ben. Yeah, that's true. Fishy did have a beautiful voice.
56 from L. This is Adrian, who called last week. Ben, what you said about being insecure made me reflect and get back on track to do as much good as possible. Hashtag Team Ben. Yeah, I'm glad that you liked what we said last week. And I hope everything goes well for you and your partner.
$5. I think Swedish
It's
krona.
56. You got to 56.
Oh, 56. Sorry. I'm sorry to use the correct nomenclature, apparently. From L, also some trans joy, 10 and a half months on T, top surgery in a month, and my anxiety, ideation, and depression are down by 90%. I finally enjoy being alive. Hashtag Team Ben. Hell yeah.
Hell
I'm so
yeah.
happy to hear that.
Love that.
Yeah.
$5 from Jen Nick 6. Woo is still a good term for magical beliefs, but Lola's bippity boppity bullshit is fucking brilliant. Hashtag Team Josie. Yeah,
It is
I
brilliant.
love that. I need to
Top
start using
tier.
that term.
I
It's
know.
hilarious.
It is. £5 from Fuzzy Logic. Josie, I'm eyeing the donations page on the Tava site. Makes me wonder if there's chatter in DC about trans charities possibly losing tax exemption. Yes. I'll briefly say that. So it's not just trans charities. It's not all, it's all C3s for
It's
environmental
all
organizations.
non-religious charities, basically, right?
Yeah, essentially, and all like C3 organizations. They were going to go after the Sierra Club first and the Enviro organizations first, but all the nonprofit organizations are holding the line, and I think that they're getting gun shy about actually pulling that trigger because they would be sued into oblivion.
Oh, yeah.
Like it would
yeah.
be one of the biggest lawsuits that I think, as far as like so many lawsuits from so many organizations, because we did everything the tax code says. You can't just up and take away our tax exemption status out of nowhere. And we would, it's disastrous. But I will say this about, let's talk about the actual situation. If it happened, a lot of nonprofit organizations are working right now to try to figure out how to survive either way. So we are planning to do worst case scenario planning, and I'm hopeful that even in the worst case, we'll still be able to operate in very specific ways. But yes, it is very, 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 very scary.
$9.99 from Jason. That shirt, though, hashtag Team Ben. Yeah, I do love it. One of my friends made this, and it's a great shirt.
Yeah, for sure. $9.99 from June Uric. So for a bit of distraction, what's your favorite dinosaur? Hashtag Team Ben. What is your favorite
Chickens.
dinosaur? Yeah, I think it's like the plitiosaur, the one that swims with the long neck.
Yeah, that's a
Like
cool
it's got
one.
like
Yeah.
fins. Yeah, I like that one.
$10 from Mr. Boricua 10. Good show today. Great calls. Had some onion ninjas or something. Listening to a certain unknown person. We're all pulling for you. You are loved. Hashtag Dr. Ben and Josie. Doing some good work as always. The hashtag goes in front of my name, so I'm guessing that that's a vote for me and not for Josie.
Come on, Team Josie. You know what to do when this stuff happens.
We're tying this up.
Yeah, $5 from Marceline, I think.
Marceline?
Marceline. There we go. Scared of taxpayer medical and bulk telecommunications being taken illegally to feed to AI feed into AI to target vulnerable U.S. communities. Help. Hashtag Team Josie. Yeah, I mean, well, good news is that Elon is leaving the government stuff, at least not the contracts, but at least everything else. So hopefully that will happen. But I think I talked about this years ago that AI is going to change the freaking world, and we are reaching that point where things are getting really scary.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. $5 from Travis Ashley. How can DEI initiatives in the workplace impact trans people positively? And how can stripping DEI funds negatively impact trans people? I mean, it's like anything where people who are diverse exist together in the same space. Like being able to exist and not feel like your identity is threatened and feeling like you have a voice, you have a right to be there, you have a right to use the bathroom, etc. Like things that people take for granted on a daily basis. Like those are legitimately things that are denied to trans people, to people of color, to all sorts of minority communities. And so, implementing DEI initiatives makes the majority actually think about these issues and think about ways to protect people instead of just letting people, get swept under the rug with everything going on. So stripping DEI funds absolutely negatively impacts people. And this also goes for like disabilities. Like DEI is why we have ramps that lead up to buildings. It's why we have those buttons that'll open the doors. It's why supermarkets have like the accessibility, like little scooter things. Like all of that is DEI. So stripping DEI just gives it makes people be forced to not exist in society. So that's how it negatively impacts people.
Yeah, and there's another thing is when you are, it's like taking the cop off the beat. And it's like if companies and organizations are breaking flagrant like just anti-discrimination laws, and they're just breaking those laws, and if you don't have people who are in place to police the fact that they're breaking these laws, it allows organizations to be more discriminatory in so many different ways. It's like saying, oh, we're gonna strip the ability for us to enforce people breaking the rules. And so it's very, very clear in a lot of ways that removing people that are there to help regulate the fact that people are being discriminated against is just bad policy.
Yeah. Is this me? 10 Australia from Puggles with no comment. But thank you, Puggles.
Thank you. And another $5 Australian from Puggles.
That is the last one, meaning
Team
topic.
Josie.
I gotta do the thing. Okay.
You gotta do the thing.
Team Josie wins, and that means Ben has to defend putting HRT in the water supply.
Let's go.
Okay.
Look out, RFK Jr. You've got a new
It's already there.
competitor.
It's already in there. All right.
Yeah. Yeah.
All right. Let me prep this up real quick. And HRT in the water. Ooh, can I spell? Hello. Okay. Are we ready?
Yeah.
Let's fucking do this thing. Charging up the clock in 3, 2, 1.
All right. So my proposal is that we put HRT in the water supply. Obviously, the goal is to make America healthy again. And the way to do that is by transing everybody. You know, all this stuff with toxic masculinity and all these people so insecure about their gender. That's because every single person is actually trans and they just don't know it because they've been given propaganda that tells them that they're not actually trans and they shouldn't be trans. And so the answer to make sure that everyone realizes their true identities and to make sure that everybody has access to free transition care is to just dump it into the water supply. Just get massive amounts of HRT. And this is a case though, okay, I am going to be a little bit controversial here, and I am going to say that we should segregate the water supplies just so you're getting the correct HRT, right? So everyone who was assigned male has to drink from the water with estrogen and progesterone and testosterone blockers. And everyone assigned female at birth has to have the one, with testosterone in it. Granted, for young people who, aren't at an appropriate age to receive HRT, that's, an exception. They can have their own separate water supply with, that dangerous fluoride and other stuff. But everybody else, everyone that could benefit from transition is going to be forced to. And in fact, everyone who identifies as cis, even if they say that they're cis, we're going to hold their heads under the water in the water full of HRT and make them drink it, make them trans. Because if I'm going to say this, the time is almost done, but I'm going to end with this statement. They think that we're putting things in the water to trans everybody. And if they're already going to spread that propaganda and already suggest that we're doing it, we might as well just do it, okay? We might as well stop hiding behind the fact that we're going to pretend that we don't want this to happen. So there you go. There's my reasoning.
I could just see you, Ben, being like a Batman villain with your own like little HRT outfit. Right, with a little scepter and everything. We are going to poison the water supply with HRT. We will end the scourge of cisness across this world.
I imagine a Batman villain character, like kind of almost like Two-Face, but each side of the costume is like blue and pink, and it's like half is a trans woman and half is a trans man
with a nice thick white stripe going right down
in the middle. Yeah.
I like how Ben also pulled an Eminem there with the "I am whatever you say I am."
Yes,
they're gonna say it anyway.
Yeah, they're gonna say it anyway, so might as well just do it.
Just do it. Oh my gosh,
I just love the trans hitchman outfits. I'm creating a whole campaign about it. Let's go. We are going to we're gonna make this thing.
Yeah, we're gonna run a D&D campaign with all the HRT in the water supply and lesbian dragons that are looking for a sperm donor. Like, this is gonna happen.
This is gonna happen. I mean, it just writes itself. This campaign. I mean, come on. Well,
and we can stream it and then give Vass the link so that he can watch us play. There you go.
Yeah, they can watch it all day. It would work. It works out for everybody. It's a win-win-win all around. Well, thank you everybody for being here today. Make sure you check out the other shows that we have here on the line and join our Patreon. It's time to be a part of this list here. All of these amazing humans that always show up on different super chats. These humans. Look, this list has gone so long. The fact that we are almost at 170,000 subscribers here on the line is incredible. And it's all because of the Transatlantic Call-In Show.
It's all because of Josie. It's all because of Josie.
Team Josie, let's go! Bye, everyone.